Hey, good morning. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 346 or 47. I don't know. A lot of things have happened over the last year, and I'm confused. But what's not confusing is how great this episode is going to be, because we're going to talk about financial freedom. And I have a special guest who's waiting in the green room right now, somebody who I've been friends with for a while and who can help us get there. They have a book coming out very soon that I want to introduce you to as well that I have checked out, and I highly recommend. If you have a guess of who this person might be, feel free to leave that in the chat. And of course, if you're here live, say hello to your friends. If you're watching the replay, hashtag Team Replay in the comments section. We're going to play the intro. We're going to do a quick intro and then bring them in. So here we go. Welcome to the show.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream. All while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
What's up, y'all? Thank you for coming in today. Financial freedom is something that I think we all dream about, we all want. And in many cases, it's actually much more achievable than you think. I know when I teach a lot of students business, I think the first step is just knowing, well, what does financial freedom mean to you? Because it has different meanings for everybody. Oftentimes I talk to people about what their goals are and they say, I want to be a 7-figure entrepreneur. And, that's $1 million, right? But sometimes when we really break it down, what a person might actually need to actually have financial freedom, it's actually not even close to 7 figures. And building a 7-figure business is completely different than building a business often that is actually what you need to live the life that you want to live. And speaking of living the life that you want to live, I'm so grateful to bring our special guest on today because he's helped me understand more about this. He himself is doing something that he didn't think he would be doing to give him the freedom and the time, not just to spend more time with him and his family and his beautiful new puppy, but also to help others at the same time. So let's see. I don't know if anybody has guessed who it is, but let's just bring this person on the show right now. So let's welcome none other than our good friend, John Lee Dumas. What's up, John? How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, brother. I just have to say, number one, ever since you asked me to come on this show, I've just been humming that unbelievable intro music. It's like, what are you doing right now? I'm like, I just can't stop. It's so amazing. And number two, yes, I do have the most adorable golden doodle, who's my little buddy, just hanging out with me. He loves that Chase Lounge. His name is Gus, and he's not cuter, but he's as cute as Pat's dog, I will say.
Nice. Thank you, John. Well, a lot of things are exciting in your world right now. We'll get to that in just a moment with your book and, of course, your podcast, which has been out since 2012 or 2011, 2012. And I have to say, I'm so grateful that I said yes to being guest number 1 on your show because I can always sort of put that stamp on everything. Like, I was John Lee Dumas' first guest, and that was great. So, tell us a little bit about your story. I think a lot of people know who you are. They know that you are the founder of Entrepreneurs on Fire. You've interviewed thousands of entrepreneurs, and you have multiple businesses and multiple forms of income as well. But I think what I love most about you is your humble start and how and why you started what you did. Can you give us a little bit of background on how you began your entrepreneurial journey?
Absolutely, brother. And no, you are right. You were my number one guest, the person I wanted to start Entrepreneurs on Fire off with. We're now over 3,000 episodes, so it's been quite a journey. Talking with some pretty awesome people, and you're actually the inspiration I give to others when they're like, well, who would ever want to be on my podcast? I'm like, well, given the Pat Flynn story, like Pat didn't even know who I was, what my podcast was about, hadn't even launched yet. He took a risk, came on, and now because he's number one of Entrepreneurs on Fire, his show has over 1 million listens to date, which is just mind blowing because he's the first guest of my podcast. So if you take a risk,
I can blame you for all the people who are asking me to come on their show, basically, like the 50 emails a day I get. I'm just kidding.
Blame me, brother. It's like step number 1. But I'm from the state of Maine. Got to live in San Diego for a number of years, which was awesome to be that close to Pat's. I no longer, unfortunately, live out there because I'm in Puerto Rico, but that's another story for us. But grew up in a very small town with, just a great community and very small southern Maine. Went to college on an Army scholarship. So I spent the 8 years after my college experience as an officer in the U.S. Army. Post my military experience, I tried a bunch of different things. Like I went to law school, dropped out after a semester, tried corporate finance, quit after 1 year during the financial crash, tried real estate, and did all these different things none of which was bringing me any happiness, any joy. And it literally was that year of 2012 that I honestly, and this is God's honest truth, was listening to Pat's show, to Andrew Warner's Mixergy show, to David Simon Garland's Rise to the Top, when I heard a quote from Albert Einstein that said, "Try not to become a person of success, but rather a person of value." And it hit me like such a load of bricks that I was doing the opposite of this Einstein quote. I was trying to be a person of success, chasing what I thought was success, and of course, coming up very short in all of those things. And I wasn't doing anything of value. Not that I was doing just a little bit of value. I was doing nothing that was providing any value. And that planted the seed of becoming a person of value. Within 3 months of that seed being planted, I launched Entrepreneurs on Fire, first daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs. And since then, as I mentioned earlier, over 3,000 episodes. I'm well over 100 million listens to date now. We're averaging over 1.4 million listens of the podcast every single month. And another way that Pat Flynn inspired me, that I give you credit for all the time, because everybody's just like, "Why'd you start doing your income reports? Like, isn't that weird?" I'm like, well, listen, back in 2012, I was looking online for ways that you could actually generate revenue and make money without being scammy or slimy, because I didn't know if that was possible. I came across this guy, Pat Flynn, Smart Passive Income, and he was publishing his monthly income reports. And he gave me so much inspiration and hope that, like, a nice guy, a family guy who's doing real valuable things in this world is making legitimate revenue and sharing it all. That was the day I said to myself, number one, I can do this. And number two, if I ever actually start making revenue, I'm going to pay it forward like Pat did. And I'm going to share my revenue numbers. I'm going to share my expenses. I'm going to share, everything that's working in my business and everything that's not, so that I can inspire other people how Pat inspired me, by being transparent, open, honest, and just, essentially just welcoming people into a very private part of his world. So I was so inspired by that. And we just crossed, Pat, our 90th month in a row, not just of publishing a monthly income report, but every one of those months has had a net profit of a minimum of $100,000 or more for every one of those 90 months, sometimes much more, but never less. And the idea, all back to you, brother.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. And you could do the math, obviously, if you want, but that is incredible. That is absolutely incredible. And when it comes to your beginning, I'm just remembering how you put yourself in these situations to have opportunities happen. I think that's sort of step one. I think a lot of us kind of wait for things to happen, or we try to come on the sidelines and sort of hope things come our way. But I know that you were very proactive with getting out there. You had a coach. You had a coach with Jamie Masters, and she was the one who introduced us together, which was really cool. And you kind of just weren't afraid to go out there and put yourself out there and make it happen. Were you always so confident in the direction you were going into, or did you have some doubts when you started?
I'm what I like to call a human being, and every single human being in this world has doubts, has fears, has what I like to call the imposter syndrome. And, to me, it's just so frustrating when I see so many people, let those thoughts and those feelings stop them, because, they might be just like on the verge of greatness, on the verge of sharing that voice, that message, that mission with the world. But because they're having those doubts, those fears, that imposter syndrome, and they're not surrounding themselves with the right people. Like you mentioned, I hired Jamie Masters. She was an amazing one-on-one mentor for me. She got me through some really tough and challenging mental times, of cowering behind what I call the wall of perfectionism, and really what that means is that I was a coward. I was, claiming I was a perfectionist, but I was really a coward to put my stuff out there into the world, like human beings are. And so what we need to do instead is embrace that and surround yourself with those right people, like the mentors that we talked about. I joined Cliff Ravenscraft, another mutual friend of ours, podcast mastermind. And that was a big investment. That was almost $4,000, where, I wasn't making any money. I was this podcaster with the idea to do a daily podcast. So these were huge investments in myself to surround myself with the right people that really got me through those doubts, those fears, those concerns, that imposter syndrome, because I had all of those swirling all the time. But being around the right people, that got me through it.
For sure. Thank you for that. And before I ask you questions and lead into your book here that you're coming out with very soon in March, which I'm super stoked about, I was wondering why it took you so long to, in fact, write a book, and I'm very grateful for that. But I have to thank you as well, because you inspired me to do my show Ask Pat, which has become very, very successful. It was something that I remember you and I were sitting at Starbucks in San Diego, and I was asking you just every question I could, similar to how when you started, you were asking me a whole bunch of questions.
Totally.
I was just like, how are you doing this daily show? What's your secret? And you told me that you had a team, that you definitely were batch processing, you were creating a system, you were systemizing it so that there wasn't as much thought required or energy required to get it out there. And I thought that was super smart. So that's when in 2014, I launched Ask Pat, which was my second podcast, which has gone on to help many, many people and has nearly 1,100 episodes now, thanks to you. So I appreciate you for that. I wanted to give you some credit here live for that as well. Now, the name of your book is called The Common Path to Uncommon Success. And before we go into what that actually means and what we can unpack here in the book, I'd love to hear your definition of success, because I think a lot of people see you, especially with how hardworking you are, and they go, oh, success must mean you need to create a daily podcast, which of course is not true. What is success to you, and how might we sort of learn from your definition?
I have a very simple but true to me definition of what success is. Success is the ability to do what you want, where you want to do it, with whom you want to do it with. If you can literally check those 3 blocks and just every day be getting up and doing what it is that you want to do in this world, where you want to be doing it, and with whom you want to be doing it with, that is success at such a high level. And that's exactly where this title of the book came from, The Common Path to Uncommon Success. Because listen, success doesn't mean millions of dollars necessarily. It can for some people, but it doesn't need to mean $1 million, $10 million, $1 billion valuation. I have a friend in Bozeman, Montana right now, Pat. You know this individual. He's making $47,000 per year. He wakes up every single morning. He gets to do exactly what he wants to do. He goes fishing, he goes hunting, he comes back, he works on his craft. He lives well below his means. He is working on what he wants, where he wants, with whom he wants to do it with. And that guy is incredibly uncommonly successful, because he's doing all of those things. So we don't need to attach financial numbers and this and all these different things to what your version of uncommon success is going to be, because maybe for the first time in your life, with the help of this book, you will actually be able to identify what your version of uncommon success looks like, what your version of financial freedom and fulfillment looks like. And now we can work towards that. And I call that backwards planning. It was an Army thing that I learned as an officer in the U.S. Army. And I just was shocked when I became an entrepreneur at how few people do this. It's like, you don't even know where you're going. So how are you ever going to know when you get there? So many people have this weird number in their head of like, when I get to $10 million, I can quit. You can quit what? And then you can do what? Like, what does that even mean? But get clear right now of exactly what your version of uncommon success is. Now we know with certainty what that goal is. Now we can backwards plan all the way back to step 1 in this 17-step roadmap, because this is not 3 steps. This isn't 5 steps. It is a 17-step roadmap, which of course, Pat is a key component on one of those steps we can talk about later, because he is the epitome of this step in every way, shape, and form. I can't even explain it. But your version of uncommon success, it needs to be thought about. It needs to be identified, and then you can make it happen.
Yeah, that's so key. And it reminds me of a story. I'm not sure if it was you or Jordan Harbinger or another one of our friends who did this, but it really speaks to this idea of like knowing where you want to go and asking yourself, well, what is stopping me from getting there? And I don't know if it was you or not, but somebody was telling me a story about their Uber driver. They had an Uber driver and they just started having a conversation with them, and they were asking them what they really wanted and what they wanted to do, like, and what they were like wishing they had. And this Uber driver said, I wish I could spend Christmas with my nephew and nieces, but it's just so busy here and I'm not able to do it. And so, again, I don't know if this is you or not, but the person,
Jordan. It sounds like a Jordan thing.
It sounds like a Jordan thing, right? And then Jordan, we'll just say it's Jordan for now. Jordan kept asking, like, well, what's stopping you from getting there? And she couldn't really, she just kept making these excuses about things that actually weren't really barriers. They were just mental barriers more than actual barriers. And by the end of the conversation, when Jordan got dropped off, this woman said, I'm going to go see my nieces and nephews for Christmas. Like, wow. I'm just going to go. And it just was really interesting because it's like, you could have made that decision the whole time. And yet we often come up with these barriers and things that stop us from having what I love is your definition of success, because it isn't about the money. For many people, the money can help them do those things. But I think when we think of money first, then that's when the issue happens. I mean, you and I know both when we go to conferences and we sit down and we're at the bars later and we're having chats with other entrepreneurs. There's some very successful entrepreneurs on paper who have several employees, they're multi-million-dollar businesses, but they're just completely unhappy. That's not success to me. And I know that's not your definition either. So take us through the book. What is the common path to uncommon success? Let's break it down a little bit and share bits of it with the audience here.
I'm happy to share as much as you want to get into on this, because this is literally the culmination of the 3,000 interviews that I've done over the past decade. I mean, I've been, Pat, the mentee to these 3,000 mentors that I've had, these interviews I've had with the world's most successful entrepreneurs, of course, yourself included in that amazing list of guests that I've had. And I've learned that there are very clear fundamental principles that we all share as successful entrepreneurs. And when I really sat down and put it on paper and boiled the fat off and just combined the similar ones, there were 17 core foundational principles that all successful entrepreneurs share. And again, kind of being the guy that I am, of just a process guy, a systems guy, I saw a roadmap in those 17 core foundational principles. And it was a step 1 to step 17 roadmap. And I said, this is why it's taken me this long to write a book, because honestly, I didn't have a book in me before. I didn't have this overriding passion to get this message out because I didn't have the clear message formed in my mind yet. But now I look down and I finally had that roadmap for the first time in my life. And it was staring me in the face, the 17-step roadmap. It was 17 chapters right there that now is just going to take me the time to sit down and write it out. And brother, you're an author, you get this. 480 writing hours it took me to write these 71,000 words, 273 pages. I mean, this is a beast of a book. And I'll be honest, I'll be transparent. I consider going the ghostwriting route. I'm a busy guy. I'm doing a podcast. I'm traveling the world. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I interview some ghostwriters and I was like, that's interesting. I think these guys are doing a really good job. At the end of the day, I'm like, I have to write this book. This is a book I have to write. And sometimes during those 480 hours, I was like, did I make the right decision? Because it's so painful sometimes. You know it, man. It is so painful.
Writing a book is difficult. But if you know that you have an audience who needs this, it gets you through it. And I know that's what got you through this. Everybody here is excited about the book and learning more about this process. I mean, if we could pinpoint a few key moments in that 17-step process. I mean, that's the cool thing about what you've done here. You've gained access to probably more entrepreneurs in a more in-depth manner than probably anybody in the world, honestly. And for you to take that information and distill it and structure it in a way that can help us sort of learn from all those interviews. Because to be honest, you have way too many interviews. I'm not going to listen to them all. So I'm sorry. And I think you know that that's true from most people who find you for the first time. But they find the ones that make sense to them. But it's like cherry picking. And here it is. Here's the entire guide. And it's almost like a very Tim Ferriss way of approaching a piece of work or a body of work, because he's had access to many things and then have distilled that information and shared it with us in many different forms and factors. And here you are doing the same thing. And I really love that you're doing that. So thank you for doing that. What are the most important parts, if there are any that are more important than others, or perhaps the audience who's here, they're entrepreneurs, they're just getting started, or they're starting, and then maybe they're going through some troubled times or not really necessarily knowing what their path is. Which few of the steps do you think we should discuss today to best help those who are watching right now?
Well, let's start off with 3 steps.
Okay.
I want to start with the first 2, and then I want to skip ahead to your step, because I think that was so cool, because there is a Pat Flynn step in this process, which you so kindly and generously contributed to.
Sure, yeah.
But just like that, we talked about at the beginning how so many people never sit down and actually even identify what uncommon success means to them, what financial freedom and fulfillment actually means to them, so many people, and not to get dramatic, but it's true, so many people are going to die not even knowing what their big idea in this world is, simply because they've never sat down and given themselves the opportunity to think about, what's my big idea? Not what has Pat done that's successful or John done that's successful, and let me go launch a weak, pale imitation of those individuals, which is what you see across the board. You see these pale, weak imitation of other successful entrepreneurs just smattering everywhere.
Mhm.
And it's no surprise that they're never successful, because Pat's zone of fire is Pat's zone of fire. Mine is mine. Yours is yours, and it's there inside of you. And it's your big idea. Don't die without ever even just discovering or uncovering what your big idea is. And so that's step one. Right off the bat, let's just get down to it. Let's identify your big idea in this world. Let's uncover what your zone of fire is, so that you can wake up every single day and be living in your zone of fire, not somebody else's zone of fire, not that weak, pale imitation that I talked about, but what you're meant to do. So now you can start living your version of that success, which is doing what you want to do every day, what you are meant to do every day. Because what this world needs, Pat, and you know this as well as anybody, is more people doing what they're meant to do, what, sets them on fire. That's what this world needs. That's going to make it a better place. And so here's the problem. When you've identified your big idea, and of course we take you through this process, I brought Hal Elrod in to talk about how he did it too, and he gives some amazing examples. He's a fantastic contributor to this book too. And we give you every single step, all the exercises, all the templates, and you're going to be excited at the end of chapter 1 because you're going to have your big idea. But then this is where people fail, Pat, and this is why we're going to move on to step 2. So many people are like, here's my big idea. Let me go all in. Well, the problem with that is a really big idea that you have for yourself is a really good idea. And I mean, it's a really good idea. But guess what? I don't want to be the spoiler, but other people have had that really good idea as well. And there's likely competition right now doing your big idea, which is actually a good thing because that's proof of concept. Now you know that it's a real thing that you can build a real business around. Mm-hmm. So many people just like lambs to the slaughter, go off and they try to battle against this entrenched competition, and it never works because they're not ready yet. So step 2 is the critical step that so few people do, which is discover the niche. Discover the niche within your big idea. Identify the void that's not being filled right now within your big idea. What is the underserved part and market of your big idea that you can serve better than anybody else? Discovering your niche is the key in this 17-step process to really get this ball rolling towards uncommon success. So a real quick random example, not random because it's my example, but real quick example before we move on. My big idea, Pat, in 2012 was I wanted to launch a podcast. That's a big idea, but that's also a broad, vague idea with a lot of competition. So I niched down. I want to launch a business podcast. Okay, that's more niche. Then I said, well, I want to launch a business podcast that interviews entrepreneurs. And Pat, in 2012, I looked around. There were 7 other podcasts doing it. Yours as well. Yours is being one of those 7. Mixer
and I
G,
said, yeah,
Mixer G, Rise to the Top. There were 7 total. And I said, do I want to be the 8th best podcast interviewing entrepreneurs? Because I would have been the worst, which would have made me the 8th best. Do I want to be the 8th best podcast interviewing entrepreneurs? And the answer, of course, was no. So I said, what's the next niche? What is the unfulfilled part of the market that I can fill? And the answer was quantity. One of my, bigger complaints was I got to listen to Pat's podcast, which back then was twice a month. And I had to wait 14 days for that next golden episode to drop, man. And every one of them was golden. I listened to each one of them like 5 times, but I didn't want to wait. I wanted that next episode every day when I went for a run, when I was driving to work. So I said, there's a void in the marketplace. I can't be as good as Smart Passive Income. No way. I mean, I never, it's not going to happen. I don't even know how to interview people, but I can be the best daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs. I'll also be the worst, but I'll be the only. That is the key. And so that's how I discover my niche. And then to move forward into the last step that we can kind of cover before I hand the mic back over to you again is your step in this process, which is step 8, which is creating content. And I mean, there's just nobody that I know that's better at doing this than you. I mean, what you've done even recently with your Pokemon YouTube channel, I mean, it's just like, again, Pat does it again. He just knows how to create content and he makes it happen. So I brought you in to contribute to that chapter. Shockingly, you crushed it with amazing content. And those are just 3 little steps of the 17-step process.
Yeah, I definitely want to dive deeper into niching down. We've talked about that a lot here on the show, and it's funny you mentioned competition because our entire episode yesterday was about competition here on the income stream and how to stand out, and you've spoken about a lot of those notes that we discussed yesterday. And niching down is great. I mean, I often say the riches are in the niches, and you could niche down in many different kinds of ways. I don't want you to just assume, okay, well, I'm just going to create more of things like John did. That is the answer sometimes, but many times that also is not the answer. You have to kind of really find your space within. This is why in my book, Will It Fly, I have an exercise, and I'm sure you do as well in the book, and in fact, I know you do, that can help people navigate the arena that they're stepping into to find the position or the landing pad for their work. And I think that's really key. Now, I have an answer to this, but I'd love to hear yours. And it's this idea of, well, John, when I niche down, aren't I leaving so many more people out? Aren't I not able to help as many people? I don't want to be pigeonholed into just becoming known as like this one person for this one thing. How do you reply to that?
I reply with a quote, I believe, to the core of my soul, which is, when you try to resonate with everybody, you will resonate with nobody. The visual that I want to paint for you right now is this little girl screaming into the wind. Nobody can hear her. Nobody can care. Because guess what? It's a busy, crazy, chaotic world out there. A lot of people have a lot of things going on. When you try to resonate with everybody, you're going to resonate with nobody, because people don't want the 7th best business podcast. They don't want the 134th best solution to this problem. They want the best. And when you niche down properly and you discover and uncover the void in the marketplace, you can create the best solution to a real problem in, you're going to win, because people will just beat a path to your doorstep because people want the best solution. And so, again, I was the best daily podcast day one. I was the worst, but I was the only game in town. And people beat a path down to my doorstep, which then allowed me to expand and go broader and do amazing things over the last decade. So did I stay in this little niche that I created for myself? No, I built it into an amazing business, and you can too. But it starts here, because traction and momentum are the hardest thing that you'll ever have to acquire as an entrepreneur. It's so hard to get. But then, Pat has experienced this as well. Once you get that first mover advantage, and once that snowball starts, not that you want to, but even if you wanted to, it doesn't stop. Like, people start talking about you when you're not in the room. You start getting articles written about you in Forbes and Inc. You're speaking on stages and this and that. It just happens when you get the initial traction to start. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Dude,
you're absolutely right. And you had mentioned my Pokemon channel, which is taking off right now. We've been live for 2 months. We're already at 12,400 subscribers, which is insane. Wow. But you say, and you talk about opportunity when you step forward, you know what's going to make you different, and you push forward and you do it even though you're scared, which I was scared. I've definitely carved a little niche in this space already, and it was something that there's been Pokemon content forever now. It's actually an advantage coming in later. A lot of people think that, oh, I'm at a disadvantage because so many people have been doing it for so long. But the cool thing about that is, like you said, number one, proof of concept, but number two, proof of what is working and what's not working, or what's missing. You get a better understanding of what's missing by first understanding what's there. And so I've actually been asked to do an interview on a rather large media platform about my Pokemon channel already, and the approach that I'm taking, which I know is going to get me a lot more eyeballs too. Something that would have never happened if I was just another person who opened packs and just kind of screamed really loud, right? Which I do sometimes because that's fun and as an actual reaction, but that's not what my channel's about. So it's just really interesting and fun and exciting, and I want to lean into that even more. So yeah, thank you for that. In the world of creating content, I'm definitely something of an expert in that. I've created content since 2008 in all different kinds of ways. If you were to, and obviously you could check out the book and see what I said about approach and how to start. But I'd love to hear your take now that you've been an entrepreneur now for nearly a decade and have created content on all different kinds of platforms as well, in all different kinds of ways, and have gotten a sense of what's working and what's not today. If somebody were to ask themselves, okay, of all the different places I can create content right now, where should I start? Should it be audio? Should it be video? Should it be written? Like, what should I do? Where should I start? Obviously, I think we all know you can't do all of them at the same time right from the beginning. So, John, where would you recommend a person start to make some noise?
I'll get specific here, and I'll be interested with your feedback. I would honestly start, if I was starting from scratch right now, with none of my skills, none of my experience, none of anything, I would start on Clubhouse. I love that medium for a lot of reasons. Let me be very clear. Clubhouse can be a massive waste of time when used incorrectly. A massive waste of time. But there are some fantastic conversations going on over there. There are really specific niche rooms that, by the way, now that it's getting fleshed out a little bit more, it's getting more and more niche. So you can
10
really
million active users now. 10 million.
And active users is like, it's kind of not even fair for Clubhouse. Like, these are people literally that are spending hours and hours on. It's not like they're just like looking at an Instagram story and clicking off. These are people that are spending so much time in this app. And so you can go to these unbelievably niche rooms and get the exact answers to the questions that you have in this world. And you can start to hone your skills by raising your hand at the right time, getting up on stage, practicing your public speaking by asking the right questions, connecting with the right people. Like, it is an amazing playground right now if you use it correctly. And it's going to be part, of your plan. It can't be your whole day. You've got to have like, okay, this hour, I will go all in on Clubhouse and I'll try to do my best on it. But there's a lot of interesting things that are happening there. I definitely have carved out time in my day to do it, and it's been very worthwhile and beneficial. And it'd be something I would recommend people checking out.
Thank you for that. Unfortunately for the Android users, obviously that's not possible yet. It is coming. It is coming, but I think that's great. And I think it's just this idea of putting yourself into places where people are having conversations and joining and learning there. So that conversation can happen on a podcast, on a YouTube channel, on a Clubhouse or whatever. So I appreciate that.
Why did Clubhouse not come to us as early advisors / seed rounds? I mean...
You and I are very proficient with, the startup world and trying to get involved in that way. So I don't think they needed us is really what the answer is, but I'm still happy to support them.
John, I would have written that $10,000 check so fast.
Dude, I appreciate you, my friend. I know that you have to bounce for another interview. You have got a schedule today that's kind of unreal, but I appreciate you spending some time with us. In the chat and I, we're going to spend some time decompressing and talking about this and, thinking about the things that we talked about today. One more time, name of the book, where should people get it, when does it drop, and anything else that you'd like to add?
So, I mean, listen, anytime I get to talk to Pat Flynn, I jump on it, whether it's in person, whether it's at a Starbucks, whether it's on his YouTube live show, which is so amazing. I mean, I honestly don't know what's a bigger accomplishment, doing 2,000 podcasts in a row over 2,000 days, or doing 347 in a row of these live shows for you. I think they're very comparable. I actually had to probably give you the nod because you've literally done it every single day for almost a year now, which is insane. I used to just have to dedicate one day per week to get to those 5 years of nonstop podcasts.
That's true. So batch process. I can't batch process the live stream. That's true.
Batch process live stream, brother. So my hat's off to you. You are just a content creating machine. You are such an amazing contributor, again, of Step 8, Chapter 8, which is all about, creating content. But of course, there's 17 full steps. I brought in 17 amazing entrepreneurs for each step. I mean, some of our other mutual friends, Ramit Sethi, Amy Porterfield, Stu McLaren, Russell Brunson, Ryan Levesque, Jeff Walker, Jamie Masters, Hal Elrod. I mean, I just went out to the people who I knew best exemplified each step to supplement, what I've learned over the years as well. And it's culminated into this book, The Common Path to Uncommon Success. So if you are interested in a revolutionary 17-step roadmap to financial freedom and fulfillment, pre-orders are available now. And so if you're one of those amazing Pat Flynn fans who's an action taker, which are most of you, you want the pre-orders, because if you pre-order this book, I have what are called no-brainer bonuses. Pat, I'm shipping all 3 of my journals to every single person who just pre-orders one book. I mean,
are you serious?
Insane, dude. I've been shipping thousands and thousands. I'm losing tons of money on every single one of the pre-orders. I don't care. It's not the point. This is like my gift back for leaving California and not paying taxes. Like I'm spending it on this stuff right here. But that's just one of the bonuses that I'm shipping all 3 of my journals to your doorstep if you pre-order one copy of The Common Path to Uncommon Success. If you order 2 or 3, I've actually have a 6th secret bonus. So make sure you screenshot that and ask me for it when you send me the email, because it's a pretty cool secret bonus. But if you want to learn all about the book, uncommonsuccessbook.com, personally endorsed by Gary Vaynerchuk, Seth Godin, Neil Patel, Erica Mandy, Dory Clark. There's a funny video of me jumping in the pool with all my clothes on, and then I explain all the details about the book. I give you the first chapter for free on that page, so you can kind of see my writing style. And again, I wrote every single word. This is a book that I spent 480 hours writing. And, I took Pat's contribution and I put it into the third person because I wrote that, of course, got his approval for it. But, I crafted every single word in this book specifically. And it's my passion project. So check it out, uncommonsuccessbook.com. Get a pre-order. Let me gift you these insane 5 bonuses for you really awesome people. That 6th bonus will be for 2 or more copies. Pat, I appreciate this to the next level, brother.
Yeah. Thank you, my friend. Beautiful pitch. Well worth the time to have you on the show today. If anybody purchased on Amazon, can they still get the bonus in some way? Can they reach out and make it?
Yep.
How do they do
Just screenshot team@eofire.com.
Team@eofire.com. John, thank you, my friend. I'll let you go. I'm sorry to hold you over a little bit, but I just need to talk to you more in life, just in general. So I thank you.
Love you, brother.
All right, man. Take care. See you, John. Cool. That was a lot of fun. I love having some guests here on the show every once in a while. We'll definitely have a lot more guests on day 365, which is coming up. That's less than 20 days that we're going to get to a full year. I appreciate all the kind words from John about the show here and to have him come on. Thank you to all of you who have watched. And obviously, if you'd love to check out the book and pre-order it, you could totally do that. But definitely, I endorse it. He's a good friend of mine, and I know that he always brings the goods, and he really cares about the quality of his stuff. And that's the other thing. He puts so much time and effort into it, almost too much, to a point where it is a fault at times for a lot of the other things that he has going on. So this book I've known about for a while. I'm happy to introduce it to you, and thank you for coming on and watching today. Available for Canada, I'm sure. Yes, absolutely. I would guarantee it. Team@eofire.com. So yeah, that was great. John is awesome. He always just brings the energy to the room. Every time you meet him in person, he has this smile with his rosy cheeks, and he just lights up the room, and I absolutely love that. And I'm really excited to see what he does with this book and how it goes. He's putting a lot of effort, and he's a marketer, he's an entrepreneur, so you'll see that in the follow-up process after you get the book and all that kind of stuff. It's definitely worth paying attention to. It's people like him and also Ramit Sethi who have access to mentors and all these kinds of people who I often follow too, because I get to watch them as they do what they do. And not just am I a part of it and I want to support and be a customer, but I want to learn from them and how they do what they do too. So I'm actually learning from John's ways here as well as he's launching this book. But I think that I want to spend some time answering some questions here for you in the final 20 minutes here of the show. And it could be about anything related to this. We are talking about financial freedom and the uncommon path to success, or the common path to uncommon success. And, this idea that there is sort of a formula, if you will. Now, there is something to be said about that. Like, the roadmap is likely the same for most, but it is what you do with those steps and how you approach those steps that are going to be really important. I saw some questions about this idea of niching down, and can you niche down too far? And I think that the answer is really no, because when you're starting out, in my opinion, helping one person get one result is where it begins. And then from there, after you get a person a result, you can find other people like them or start branching out a little bit more to find people that are similar or who could benefit from the same process, a process that you've now gone through and have helped people with. And so that's really key. And I think that what's really neat is after you do something once and for the first time, this always is the case. The next time you do it, it's going to be at least more approachable and perhaps even easier to do. Case in point, the Pokemon channel. I mean, I have now knowledge about YouTube and how YouTube works, and putting that into something new gave me the ability to kind of grow it to where it is today. There is a new video coming out. I actually don't know if it's come out yet. I'm very curious. Sorry. Not out yet, but we do have another video coming out on that channel very soon, which is actually a part 2 of a video that was very popular before. So some thoughts about kind of, again, not just like taking a YouTube channel here and then making another YouTube channel, but even on a same YouTube channel, taking something that has been proven to work that now you know the process about and doing it again because you want to sort of inject more of that is great. So this video that's coming out later is another mystery box video, and we put a little twist on it, so it should be a lot of fun. Let's see. What inspiration, Pat, you and John are for the community. Thank you, B-Roy. I appreciate you. Looking forward to your stuff as well, my friend. I hope the technology stuff and the camera stuff that we talked about is not holding you back, because you got a lot of great stuff to share, and the world needs to hear it. CB says, what do you do when you reach the financial freedom destination? Spend and start over? Isn't it about the journey, dude? It is about what you then unlock for the next part of the journey. That's my opinion, because I think you're right. I think a lot of people have this milestone in their head of getting success, and it's like, okay, well, now what? Do I just start over? In many places, many people do that. But for me, it's like, like every milestone, every sort of, success moment is unlocking the next moments, right? I think about a biography that I read, and it was Benjamin Franklin's biography, right? It's like 700 pages long. It's super thick, right? And the first 60 pages of that book, not even to page 100, he's already 40 years old. All the things that Benjamin Franklin has had an impact on, that we know him and is his legacy, happened after the age of 40. And that's just super inspiring to me, because it's like you can at any moment in time step up and level up to the next part. And so to me, financial freedom is, that freedom part is the most important thing. It's that ability to now go and do something else. And that something else can be another business or other things. And I'm very much in that camp of, let's go more bold, let's go bigger and help more people. For many others, like John's example of his friend who lives in Michigan off of $47,000, wakes up every day so happy to spend time with who he wants to spend time with, to do what he wants to do when he wants to do it. That is financial freedom as well, because he's living within his means and is able to spend it with the time with the people that he wants. And that's incredibly inspiring too. And again, it's not just about the money, but when you reach that freedom moment, it unlocks the next part of the journey for you. And for me, I have bigger and even more important things that I want to affect. I want to have an impact on the world of education and entrepreneurship within schools. I want to, be a voice within that space. And that is more able to happen with the work that I'm doing now, even in the Pokemon space. I'm already getting people reaching out in the Pokemon space, talking about things that aren't even about Pokemon, about bigger, more legacy-related things, which is really cool. Oh, CB, SIB, not CV. I'm sorry, CV. So cool that you had JLD on. We're both in Puerto Rico and happened to be at the same New Year's party on bringing in 2020 last year. Oh, no way, that's crazy. Yeah, he lives in Puerto Rico. He made a decision a few years back to move there, primarily because it is a destination. He loved it after he visited it, but also for tax purposes. And he'd actually asked me and my family, like, hey, you guys should kind of move down here. We can be neighbors and we can, grow our businesses together, and you can save a ton of money not being in California, which is definitely true. But I live here and I work hard so I can be here near family, near friends, in this weather, in this part of the country, which I absolutely love. And I know a lot of people think I'm crazy for staying here because there's many, many more opportunities to save more money. But again, when you reach financial freedom, you can have that ability to do things like that for many others perhaps are maybe outlandish. So that's part of that decision. And so I'm happy for him, but I'm not moving to Puerto Rico. I'm sorry. Contempo Coding says, any tips for mentally getting over the frustration of copycats and spammers in your niche? Yeah, this is a great thought. I think that obviously there's some more technical, perhaps even legal things that you can do with regards to trademarks and patents and those kinds of things that can definitely steer away a number of different people. Or if they come about, you can actually know that you have something to say that can actually push them away. Having attorneys and other things like that in your corner can help with that regard as well. But I think mentally, even specifically for spammers or people who sort of copycat your stuff that, are doing it within legal rights, but it's still the fact that it's not cool. Number one, I remember being told after people started copying me, taking my articles, putting their name on it, taking my image, using it for ads, like really bad things sometimes. A lot of people say, oh, well, it's a sign that things are going well. What is it? What do they say? Imitation is a form of flattery. And I'm like, you're just, no. I don't believe that. In a way, that's true. It's like, oh, people wouldn't imitate you if you didn't have anything worth imitating. But in my opinion, I'm a stern believer, an absolute stern believer, that if somebody's taking your stuff, that's not cool, right? So for me mentally, for me, it is usually about this idea of understanding, well, they have something that they can never take from me. Because it's more than just about the work. It's more than just about the pieces that I'm putting together or the words that I have in my courses or the videos that I'm coming out. It is the connection that I have with my audience, with the people who are on my email list, and the trust that I've earned with them. That is something that those people will never have. And in my eyes, it's more of like, bring it on, dude. Because I promise you, you're not going to have as deep of a connection with people if you're just copycatting my stuff. So bring it on. I don't say that publicly because I don't want people to bring it on, but bring it on, if that makes sense. I don't want to be imitated. Exactly. Like nobody wants to. It's like, it's disrespectful, in my opinion, in many cases. I think that I'm flattered when somebody gets inspired. For example, with my Pokemon channel, a lot of people who are Pokemon creators have reached out to me and said, Pat, you've inspired me to do more with my production. And I love that. That's not imitation. And they're going to do it in their own specific way. Although I did see one PokeTuber create a video that was very similar to one of mine, like almost shot for shot, almost with the style and the wording and the cameras. And I was just like, okay. But you know what? I'm not worried because they're always going to be second at best. If this is what I'm becoming known for, then, everybody else is just going to be second place. Sometimes it's not about saving or making more money. Yeah, in my opinion, most of the time it's not. We just make that the place that we feel is important. Dang, I had to run after I got home, so I only just arrived. No worries, Celine. You can go back and watch. We had a special guest on who dropped some really amazing knowledge on us to help us out with regards to, discovering this pathway to success. And again, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to our guest, John Lee Dumas. His book, The Common Path to Uncommon Success, coming out in March. He has some bonuses at uncommonsuccessbook.com that you can get access to, which is really cool. 4% tax here for qualifying businesses. Yeah. And we're only a couple months away from tax day. When you write a check for 6 figures, it kind of hurts. It kind of hurts. So mentally, I have to think about, I get to write a check for this much because I get to be here, because I've earned this. And yes, it does hurt because, wow, I could put that money into Tesla or Bitcoin or whatever. That's just me. I'm not offering financial advice. But, and I'm like, there's still that pothole at the end of the road, dude. Like, is this money even working? I get to write a large check for taxes. And I know a lot of people don't get that. So that's how I mentally think about that. Any tips on how you should slow your growth when you get near where you want to be? I don't want a huge business, just manageable. I think it depends on the business, right? If, for example, you are a consultant or a coach, having a certain number of clients and knowing what that number is, and that's like your gold star number, that's what it is. And slowing down is just like saying, no, sorry, I'm not taking any more clients, right? In many other cases, it's not quite as simple. I think for many people, it's not going to be necessarily a dollar amount. It's not necessarily going to be, here's what we're going to do or here's what we're not going to do anymore. I think it comes down to you and your time, because that's really what this is about, right? Slowing down your growth is not necessarily because you want to slow down the business. It's because you want to only handle what you can handle. So Marin, in my opinion, it's more of a conscious effort to understand how much time you're putting into certain things. And if that's too much time or what the limit might be on that, to a point where you then get to decide, okay, well, let's just be happy with the business the way it is, and let's keep the same numbers next year. There's no like, we always think about growth. I would highly recommend reading a book called The Company of One by Paul Jarvis, which really challenges this idea that we have almost built into us, which is you got to keep growing or else you're failing. But Paul Jarvis lives on an island in Canada somewhere, and like John's friend, he only has a certain amount of clients that he helps with design work. He's perfectly happy, and he's not worried about not growing. He just wants to keep things steady. And I think, especially in the US, just have this feeling of we got to grow bigger. We got to go bigger because bigger means successful, and successful means money, and money means options. It doesn't necessarily need to work like that, right? Let's see. My cohort for the mental health podcast idea, we have to go impatient help. So I'll be on the drawing board solo for a while. Cool, you can do it. You can own that. At that point, it's more about doubling down and improving your own product content and not looking over to see what the copycats are trying to do. Yeah, right. That's a good point, Chris. It's, we expend a lot of energy and time. I remember, and this is just the truth, my courses get sold on other platforms for 5% of the overall price for steal. It's actually robbery, really. And they're usually websites that are overseas that have all the different online courses available for like literally hardly any money at all. And it's stealing. It's taking away from customers that could come my way. But then when we crush one of them down, we can either hit them in their PayPal account, we can hit them at their server level and take the websites down. They always pop up back again. And I remember expending so much energy trying to get rid of all of them, sort of like swatting flies, but then there's always another one that comes to just go, you know what? Let's forget about them. They're there. Anybody who purchases these courses, they're not anybody who would probably purchase my courses anyway. And I want to take the approach of people feeling like if they were to take this course and then realize that it was something that they got when they got it in sort of a under the table manner, well, they'll probably come back and pay for another one of my courses or get involved in one of my coaching programs or share my website and support it in some way, shape, or form. And it's sad that for especially online course creators that's what happens, which is why I'm also very glad that we have the SPI Academy, which is or SPI Pro and the Academy within it, and all those kinds of places where people who buy it in those places don't get access to those things. And then SPI Pro being a community where we will know when people offer their login information elsewhere, or they can't really sell multiple copies of it. But it's just a reality of the world. And I think that I could waste a whole bunch of time thinking about that and a lot of money on lawyers and attorneys to crack down on those things. Or I can lean into building deeper relationships with my audience. I can lean into making my products even better for those who will purchase it and then share it, to build relationships with people who will partner with me on those products and stuff. So, yeah. Cool. For me, it's like I could get upset about it. I have gotten upset about it. But this is the only life I'm living. I want to be as happy in most of it as possible. And there are things externally that will happen that will try to combat my happiness. But it's really up to me to decide how to react to those things. That's the biggest lesson I learned after getting laid off. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. But I made it my fault. And I thought long and hard about the things that I could do better and the things that I should have done differently, wishing there was a time machine I can go back into time with. But that's not possible. But what is possible is determining how I want the rest of the story to pan out. And when it comes to the financial freedom stuff and the conversations we had with JLD today, I definitely think that we all have that ability. But it's going to be a tough road. There was no mention of it being an easy road for sure from John, and I don't think he's faking that at all. There is a road, but it's a hard road. But when we can do it together, help each other out, that's great. When we can learn how to fall and fail forward, we're still making progress. And when we take that long road and come up with these little markers along the way that we can reach, it's like running a marathon. And I'll tell you, when you see that mile marker down the road, you do push a little bit harder because you want to get to that next step. And then it's just another hard trudge, but you keep marching 20 miles and you keep going forward and you're eventually going to reach your goals. So thank you so much for coming in today. I appreciate you. Tomorrow, we are going to have a conversation about something else. And that's going to be at 10 a.m. Pacific. So 10 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Again, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Thank you for coming in today. I appreciate you and all the support. A wonderful crowd, a great conversation, amazing guest. John Lee Dumas, again, if you want to check out his book, The Common Path to Uncommon Success, you can pre-order it on Amazon. It is a #1 bestseller already, even though it's not out yet. Or you can check it out at uncommonsuccessbook.com and get some bonuses from him too. So well done today. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. We'll have more conversation about our road to success tomorrow. And I look forward to seeing you all around the interwebs. And keep up the great work. Thanks, everybody. Take care. And as always, Team Flynn for the win.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream. All while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
Big thank you to the moderators who are in the house for always making it even more special. I can't thank you enough for just doing a little bit of extra legwork here to make the community even better. So thank you so much to the mods. Make sure you thank the mods on your way out. They have the blue names with them here in the chat. And I'll see y'all tomorrow, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Take care. Hit that thumbs up button before you go. Peace out.
Bruh.